He may be a day late. He is not a dollar short. And for that matter, I think he's right on time because although Kevin Harvick is really dominating the silly season, the big news yesterday with the Supreme Court legalizing on a state-by-state basis sports gambling, no one's talking about how it's going to affect NASCAR. I think it could potentially have the biggest impact on NASCAR. And a man I want to talk to about that is Jerry Bonkowski of NBCSports.com, tremendous motorsports writer. And getting right to it here before we go to the All-Star race coming up or, last week, with Kevin Harvick winning again and all. How do you think NASCAR is going to embrace or reject, I guess one could ask, what came out yesterday, the state-by-state allowance for sports gambling? How do you think that'll affect NASCAR, Jerry Bonkowski?
Well, honestly, Marky, I think that all a very premature supposition about how this decision by the Supreme Court is going to affect not only NASCAR but all sports leagues, because the way it appears right now is that several leagues, including the NFL, are preparing to try to fight this, and they are going to try to do through Congress, see if Congress can do something and make it still illegal on a federal level, even though the Supreme Court ruled that was unconstitutional. But more specifically to NASCAR, I think it'll have some impact. I don't think it'll have anywhere near the impact, though, as you see, let's say, like in the NFL or, in college football or college basketball. I mean, I think that, one other problem you have to worry about is a lot of the tracks and a lot of the states those tracks are in that NASCAR races on may not embrace sports betting. They may not allow it. Although, I heard something this morning which kind of intrigued me. DraftKings, which has, been known for essentially de facto sports betting or quasi-sports betting, phrases, through the fantasy ranks, they said they're going to be ready to go once the NFL season starts, and they're pegging all their future essentially on the NFL. So I think that you will see some betting if there is no challenge or if Congress doesn't step in or do some other new legislation or whatever you want to call it. But I think that on an overall perspective, I just don't see it impacting NASCAR as much as maybe some people think it might. I think it'll have some impact. I just don't think it'll be a great impact.
But the reason why I think it has a chance to have tremendous impact is it's racing. And you don't see the odds, even in die-hard NASCAR areas, for a variety of reasons, as much like the odds on a Harvick winning again or just whatever that you do, say, football point spreads or basketball point spread. You just don't see that in the newspaper, be it the Las Vegas Sun, the Chicago Sun-Times, or, the Kingsport Times-News. You just don't. All right. So, but what I'm saying is that if there's more of an embracing of it, if the Virginia Lottery has, hey, a NASCAR game based with Martinsville, that's an appeal that a lot of people would like to have with racing. And I mean, everything's speculation, Jerry, but I mean, just like you said, some states will embrace it, some won't. And I wonder, we got two races now in Las Vegas. Does that mean that, now fans will be able to, in say a couple of years, have a pari-mutuel at the track there and literally be able to bet just like you would a horse race at a NASCAR event? And if it does, how does that affect the sport? I think it's fascinating, and I think it could add a whole new fan base to the sport if it's allowed. That's my point there. Do you follow what I'm saying, or am I just a pie-in-the-sky dreamer? What do you think, Jerry?
I see what you're saying, but here's the way I really look at it is, betting in Las Vegas, it's been going on for years.
Sure.
Even when, the series goes to Las Vegas to race, people are betting there. They're betting when they're, NASCAR's in Dover. They're betting when NASCAR's in California. They're betting when NASCAR's in Talladega. So, I don't see that significant of a change, let's say, in the Las Vegas sports book. this case was Chris Christie, the former governor of New Jersey,
Sure.
Going against the leagues to say that sports betting should be allowed because New Jersey needs the revenue. I get that. But then does New Jersey have a NASCAR race? No. The closest one is Dover. It's kind of touch and go where this is all going to go. And I honestly, even though places like or companies like DraftKings are saying that they're going to be ready for the NFL season, that's all well and good. But I think a lot of the potential betting going forward is going to be a long way down the road. I don't see, unless there's movements afoot. I know there is a movement afoot here in Illinois to really ramp up very quickly if the Illinois legislature approves it. But given the fact that the Illinois legislature is controlled by the Democrats, I just don't know if I'm going to see that here in my home state anytime soon. So, if you think you're going to go to the NASCAR race in about a month and a half here in Chicago and lay down a few bucks to pick whoever's going to win, that's not going to happen anytime soon, in my opinion. I think there's going to be challenges. I think there's going to be appeals. I think there's going to be congressional oversight, congressional hearings. Honestly, I don't see betting being approved by state, although I read somewhere, I think it was 13 or 17 states have various forms of betting legislation in the pipeline once this thing was, if it turned out the way it did indeed turn out yesterday. So, we could see some changes pretty quickly, but I'm more of a pessimist. I just don't see it happening right away. Maybe a year from now, maybe longer than that, but then again, it could happen maybe in 6 months or less, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, a year from now, I would think would be very, very soon. I mean, you mentioned Dover. I know Delaware has, throughout time, they've wanted to, introduce gaming, with their lotteries or, have some sports gambling involved for revenue, and they've always been turned down. It's like, no, it's Atlantic City or it's Nevada or not at all if you're not going to go online and have one of those online sites where you can bet on just about anything. Of course, one of the things that I'm told, because I've never used an online betting service, Jerry Bonkowski, but in the early days, at least, of sports, of doing this, a lot of these were offshore, and so they didn't have any American legalization. So if they took a pounding or something, they could just shut the site down and not pay people, and so there was always that risk. I think that when you have the site based in America, there's a little more, a little more security in placing something online. So just
you
wanted,
mentioned about Dover. I mean, Dover, Delaware. Dover Speedway. They have a casino right next door. I mean, they're literally the bus the racetrack. So, they already have a precedent for gambling of a certain form, but they just don't have sports betting. And like I said, I mean, even though the Supreme Court overruled the law, there's still a lot of latitude for for Congress to and the Senate for that matter to really do something different, or perhaps maybe allow limited betting, essentially not just parlays or pari-mutuels. I mean, I'm sorry, not pari-mutuels. I mean various gimmick betting. That's what I was looking for the word for. I mean, they may just say you can bet on a game, but you can't bet on, let's say, a player's performance or who hits the home run first or who scores a touchdown first. They may just say, okay, you can bet on the outcome of the game. That's it. That's a possibility too. So, again, we have not heard the end of this thing. This is going to be, to me, a long, drawn-out process. I don't see any state approving league betting, anytime in the next at least 6 months.
Everything is speculation. And I mean, I'm looking, you say 6 months, I'm looking, to 10 years in the future or something, but where we might be able to go to with a Dover as compared to a Bristol. Bristol was always, you wanted to go there, you could see the whole race, big track, you had the camping, that it was that mountainous environment, old moonshine country. I mean, we understand that, right? Okay, that was the appeal of Bristol. But will that appeal be able to stand up to if we do have something like, okay, I'm going to take, Harvick to win and Truex and have an exacta like that at the casino in Dover and then go to the race across the street. I can see the appeal of that being actually greater. And it was one of the concerns that I had because I know that, just to let you know, Jerry, I think Tennessee was the next to last state behind only Utah to have a lottery. I mean, it was, gambling, my goodness. I mean, there was that old time Southern preacher type of preaching sin mentality.
Right.
Yeah, you did not, that was not accepted as it would be in some place like a Chicago. Okay, I mean, just the way it is. And so that's something that if this does take hold, I think could actually help certain tracks and hurt others, one of them being, sadly, Bristol. That's the way. Now, this is all speculation. Absolute speculation before we say that Bristol's going to lose a race or close up or start demolishing seats. Let's not, let's not lose our heads. But I'm just saying there could be a path now where that takes place. And I've always thought that being able and having more, it's racing, having a little more horse racing, if you will, attitude could really bring in a whole new fan base to NASCAR.
Yeah, Marky, there's one thing that I think a lot of people are either overlooking or not aware of. The leagues themselves are not going to get rich on betting at all. I mean, NASCAR is not going to get, $20 billion from various states for allowing gambling. They're not going to get. I don't think they're going to get anything at all.
Well, I know the NBA is saying, hey, we want to do this, but we want 1% of the cut.
They're not going to get it. They are not going to get it, and I'll tell you why. This is run by the states, the individual states, and the individual states that are pushing for this are the ones that have really, in some cases, dire financial straits. New Jersey is in dire financial straits. Illinois is in dire financial straits. I mean, I don't think there's a state in the union that's worse off from a financial perspective than Illinois. I mean, so if I told you the taxes I'm paying, you wouldn't believe it. I mean, it's incredible how much we pay to live here. We're paying more in taxes, for property taxes and income taxes than we're paying for just a regular tax that we should be paying for. I mean, I meant to say our mortgage. My property taxes are more than my mortgage. I mean, figure that one out.
Now, it doesn't really surprise me. I mean, I feel for you, but I just wanted to say I know a little bit about the taxes in Chicago because I remember being there and seeing $4 a gallon gasoline, and so that's all. That's taxes. Why is it? The gas station outside the station, I think, is saying $2.71.9, but I'll bet it's at least $1 more there in Chicago. And I know it goes significantly down when you get outside the city limits or certainly into Wisconsin. I've been there. I know that anyway. But this is Tri-City sports now, so But no, even just high tax state. I get that here. I want to ask. I've got a friend here who had a very interesting thing. I want to before we get into the Harvick dominance, and I'm going to change the topic here a little bit. But he was arguing, and he says, would the victories of a Kyle Busch, lower levels, that sort of thing, of racing non-cup, but still he's got, about 187 victories, should that be put alongside a Richard Petty? Because back in the day, Richard Petty was racing against a lot of people who, let's face it, wouldn't be on the track today. That was his point. And that a lot of when you had a larger field, a lot of those guys would be driving Xfinity now, let's say, and not, Cup Series. And so he seemed to think that, my friend felt that Busch's 187 victories through all series was only 13 races less impressive than what the King had. What would you say to someone trying to compare that? What's your thoughts on that?
There is one word I'm going to use.
Okay.
And we're going to go back to 1961 for when this word really came into play. That word is the word asterisk. Roger Maris, when he broke Babe Ruth's home run.
Yes.
There was they call it the asterisk. He never got the full credit, Maris did, for what he accomplished in that season. I mean, they're saying, well, it was a longer season. He played more games than Ruth played, whatever the case may be. But the point is that even though he achieved a very distinct and very unique milestone, he was always kind of followed by that word
154 games. Yeah, it took Maris 8 more games. Sure.
Exactly. Now, it's kind of the same thing with Kyle Busch because, he will hit 200. I mean, I'm willing to bet you that within the next 3 years he'll get to 200, maybe even sooner than that because, it depends on how many races he's going to do in the Xfinity and the Truck Series, but, he will get to 200, I'd say, in the next 3 years or thereabouts. You can't deny the achievement he will make. You can't deny the success he's had. You can't deny the fact he's such a winning driver. But I think that he will kind of run in the same path or problem that Roger Maris did, and it's not of his doing. Neither was it about Maris's doing. But they made it. He will make an achievement just like Maris did. But there will always be a certain portion of the fandom, a certain portion of the media, even a certain portion within the garage that will say that Richard Petty, because he won 200 wins in what had been the Grand National Series and eventually became the Cup Series, that he deserves it because it was in only one series, whereas Kyle Busch's wins will be in 3 series. You can go back and forth on what's the right argument, what's the wrong argument, but I think that unless Kyle Busch sticks around till the age of 60 and gets 200 Cup wins, I don't think you're going to see him get the same level of notoriety or recognition that Richard Petty earned with his 200 wins, and has continued to earn even in retirement as a driver or from being a driver.
Well, it's so funny that you mentioned Roger Maris, and it is a great point right there. By the way, Tracy Stallard, who gave up Maris's 61st home run, was a friend of mine. He was from the area. He was from Wise, Virginia. Yeah, he was Wise, Virginia. And to even give you more irony, where we met, and I did a story on him, or Baseball Digest, about 10 years ago, the game I'll never forget. It wasn't the Maris game. He had broke a 23-game road losing streak for the Mets, beating the Dodgers on Casey Stengel's birthday. How about that? That was his big victory, and he was from the area. And where we met was at a horse racing parlor. So just go into just what it's the irony of the first 2 questions right here. So yeah, he passed away last year, but yeah, Tracy liked to play the ponies a little bit here. Hey, what is it? I mean, with Harvick, is this guy, taking magic beans? I know that, a lot of people are talking about the tire change that he made, that was allowing him to go past Truex at the end of the race and all. But why do you think Harvick has been so dominant this season?
He's just good. Plain and simple. I mean, we saw how Truex dominated last year, and I think a lot of people have forgotten about that. Or when Kyle Busch dominated a couple of years back. People forget that, and they think that, or even when Brad Keselowski won 5 or 6 races in the 1 year or a few years back. People seem to forget that their memories are short, and they think that, because Harvick's won 5 or whatever, 5 or 6, whatever it's been, that he's doing something unique. He's doing something great, but it's not unique because we've seen it already, from other drivers. So, I mean, that being said, Stewart Haas is doing a fantastic job. Clint Boyer obviously has had some success rub off on him. Certainly Kurt Busch has had some success, although he hasn't won yet this year. Eric Almirola has had some success rub off on him. I just think that Harvick is he's one of the toughest drivers out there, and he just will not be he will not let anybody go past him. I mean, that's kind of the way he is, and this is. I mean, I'll be very surprised to see if he wins, 2 or 3 more wins, or races rather, and then he doesn't win the championship. I will be very surprised. And then, people will start saying, well, we've seen since the new format came into existence in 2014 how the champions have played out. But, it's a matter of time, I think, before a guy who wins the most races is not going to win the championship. And then we're going to start hearing people say, well, maybe this new format that came into effect 5 years ago is just not the right way to do it. So, I mean, there's always kind of ways to spin it right now, but, I mean, right now Kevin Harvick's the man to beat, and, the Toyotas are having problems, the Chevys are having problems, Fords and Harvick and Stewart Haas Racing, they're doing good.
Yeah, obviously, and it'll be interesting to see. There's that cliche. If when the Fusion leaves the Mustang, just what impact that will have if it is because it's a sedan against a pony car. I am wondering about that. And I think everybody is, and I know that, but we'll find out. I do want to ask, though, for someone who is a novice, and all of a sudden I said, you know what, it sounds like a good idea, but I couldn't tell you exactly what a tire change late in the race, if you've got enough time, would do for a car in such a competitive situation. What benefit, theoretically, does putting on new tires onto the car give it? I would imagine, well, less likely for a blowout, let's face it, but what else would putting the new tires on give it? They don't have any tread, Jerry.
Well, here's the way I look at it, Marky. And I've been asked this a few times in the past, and I always get the same answer. It takes, and now we're talking about Kansas, mile-and-a-half track, very comparable to places like Charlotte, Chicago, Las Vegas,
Sure.
Texas, places like that. And the way I envision it is this. You put on a new set of tires, it's going to take you about maybe 2 to 3 laps to get those tires up to speed. It's late in the race, and you need better grip. You're going to get that grip with those new tires. And anybody who's running on tires that are even 10 laps less, or more rather, that have been out there, they're going to start having tire wear. They're going to start having control issues. They're going to, the traction's not going to be there. The new tires, though, will give you that traction, and you'll have it for another 10, 15, 20 laps, whatever the case is, to get increase your on-track position. You'll be able to pass drivers easier, and you have a good chance of winning, as we saw from Harvick, what he did at Kansas Saturday. So it's a very strategic thing, but it makes a ton of sense because how many times have we seen guys that thought they could go to the finish with the same fuel and the same tires? They have enough fuel, but the tires go away, and then you see a guy who had a recent pit stop that got new tires goes on to win. And Kevin Harvick certainly falls in that category a number of times in his career where he made late stops for fuel and or tires, and he winds up winning like he did Saturday. So I think that it's a strategy thing more than anything else. That's the best way I can describe it.
It's, and I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Handling is what you're talking about.
Right.
Anybody who's had, a car, I've got a car from 1973 and one from 1995. Well, my 95 car does handle just a little bit better, okay? I mean, for whatever reason. We get the idea now. It's handling. All right, that makes a sense. A lot of it. Jerry, I can't believe I've been talking to you, as always here, for 20 minutes. That means I'm up against a break, and I got to, stop. But what do you say we talk later on in the week about the All-Star race in Charlotte? We do that? All right, we'll do that. Jerry Bonkowski, the Right Reverend of Rev, Tri-City Sports Now, coming back after this.